There are many people who, when they hear the word church, I don't know what they're thinking about, but they're not thinking about what they ought. If they know of Christ and the church through us, maybe that is on us that they're not thinking what they should. But sometimes even within the body, the members don't think of the church like they should. They might associate it with the building or the activities that take place here or the worship that we're involved in. Maybe the people who worship at a certain congregation, but still not quite there yet. Sadly, some members look at the church as more of a burden instead of a blessing. In our recent series, which we have concluded, we looked at the commands that are given to one another, and we looked at the commands of how God expects us to treat one another. But having concluded that series, I didn't want you to associate that phrase, one another, with commands all the time. And it was hopefully obvious that all of those commands and admonitions were to our blessing. They are intended to bless us. And so today I just want to focus on that phrase, one another. And to compile some familiar themes, lest it go unstated and not obvious. Each member of the body is and must always be one another's blessings. Sometimes I'll start with a theme and then get on a trail or a track and then arrive at that profound conclusion. Today, no. That's our lesson. We're starting with that point. We're going to go on a journey of verses back to that point. In Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verses 9 through 12, you heard them read earlier. I'll just mention a few points. 2 are better than 1, because they have a good reward for their labor. For if either fall, the other will pick the other up. But woe to him who falls and is alone. He doesn't have anyone to pick him up. Hold that thought and happily contrast that to how God's design of the church is. I love God's view of his divinely designed, redeemed spiritual body on earth in Romans chapter 12, verse 3 through 8. For I say, and I encourage you to turn there, for I say, by the grace given to me, to everyone, that's each of us, who is among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think. I'm about to say a few lines or a few words that may not sound like they're appropriate to the context because we are familiar with this chapter. Last year we taught 13 weeks on it. But I would like to add something. In the context of pride, none of us are so superior members of the body that we would not still die if severed from it. As we think about that sobering thought, we go back to the text and see he says to think soberly. When I hear think soberly, that means there's something I'm to get real about. Let's get real. And in this context, thinking humbly is in order because he says you have a place, you have a purpose, you have a value. Yes, each one does. He says, as God has dealt to each one a measure of faith. For as we have many members in one body, but all the members do not have the same function, so we, being many, are one body. I like the emphasis in the class about that one body. And individually, we're members of one another. Now, obviously, we've talked about that body membership a lot. God designed his body, the church, and I'm looking at the members of it. And the members of that body are to be a blessing to the whole body. He gave us this gift of one another. I came so close to putting on the screen the panoramic shot I took last week. But I remember I told you I wouldn't do that. So I'm not going to do that. But I have a great view up here. And after the service, I want you to enjoy that view as well. As you're walking and talking and fellowshipping. God does incredible things with and through and for us. But he does some of his best work through his people. I know it's scary to commit to building relationships. I know it's not easy to recommit to rebuilding some of those relationships with the brethren. But as we examine and contemplate Romans 12, verses 3 through 8, let me share with you 4 encouraging lessons that I learned, that I pick up on, and maybe you do too. I think this will help us appreciate what we've got, appreciate this gift from God. Never take it for granted, never cast it aside, but always utilize. Please never take it for granted. And on that note, it's encouraging to say we do not have to face life alone. And I'm thankful because getting real, thinking soberly, life is tough. We have plenty of good times. We have our share of hard times. And sometimes they overlap in the same time. We face family stress. We face work troubles, financial fears, to say the least. And on top of all that, we want to please God and we face temptation. Why is that a part of our lives? And we know, but can't it just all go away? Well, we hear the phrase, Satan works overtime. Apparently he doesn't have to sleep, so he never stops. And he doesn't want you to make it through this thing called life and be right with the Lord and to experience all the blessings that are only in Christ. According to 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8, he's like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. God doesn't want you or I or us to be that isolated prey that the devil just can't wait to destroy. He wants us together. Yes, we're wearing his armor, and we're supposed to be together because we can't make it on our own. Do you ever feel alone? When we feel it, we can find evidence for it, whether it's there or not. We feel it. Do you ever feel alone? You know, it's interesting that even when you do feel that, you're in good company. Elijah. Elijah felt that way even after one of his greatest victories. 1 Kings 18. Preachers love to talk about this chapter. The victory on Mount Carmel. A common title among the brotherhood is God and I make a majority. I've used it. I love it. That's so true. The contest between the false prophets of Baal. All morning long, they couldn't get his attention. But after one prayer, Jehovah responded to Elijah's request and lit the altar and consumed all that was around it. The people saw who the true God was, and they slew the false prophets. Incredible. But that did not stop Jezebel. It only made her want to kill Elijah. 2 Kings 19 verse 4, by then, since the trials continued, Elijah asked for God to just take his life. He just wanted to die. Isn't that interesting? Why? He knew from chapter 18 that God was with him, but he prayed to die early. By verses 10 and verse 14, we see that problems mounted, yes, trials continued, but he also believed he was all alone. He fought valiantly. He preached God's word. He upheld it. And he stood against all those enemies. Trials continued, however, and he felt all alone. So notice God's response, just like God's words to Paul at his lowest state. I love when God comes down directly and speaks to his children, as we see in the Old Testament and New Testament. 1 Kings 19:18, God says, I have reserved 7,000 in Israel who have not bowed the knee to Baal, nor has kissed him. Wow. That message to Elijah was probably like the entire book or main message of the Revelation is to us. I hope you are enjoying your daily 5 minutes a day Devo with God in that epistle now, or in that special book now. God will win. God knows who his people are. If you want the victory, stay with the victor. And God says, you're not alone. You're not alone. 7,000 is small in comparison to Israel at the time. But the point is, you're not alone. After God gave Elijah some good advice, he knows we're human. He says you need to eat, sleep, and then eat and sleep some more. And then he gave him an assignment. You have something else to do. And then that knowledge that you are not alone, and you know it, is able then to help. And that's where we are. Let's jump to the New Testament again and look at Revelation. I keep going to that. I'm enjoying that study so much. Romans chapter 12, verses 3 through 8. And again, we know those verses well. It demonstrates the same point, doesn't it? Think about this. We gather here to do what? To remind one another that we're not alone. What's that all about? Functions of the body, helping each other, building it up. I think about Hebrews 10, 24 and 25, right? We gather together, not forsaking the assembly and the identifying of the body. Why? Because we are encouraging faithful living. That's what we're doing. And I hope that that's what you are experiencing right now by hearing the words that I'm saying. Every person in this room faces struggles. And as we mentioned, Romans 3:23 tells us a struggle that we all identify with, sin or its temptation thereof. And we often yield to that temptation. We want to overcome it. We want to overcome. And in Christ we have been forgiven, but we want to overcome and have more victories for the glory of God and our own growth. God has given us each other. He's put us in this body that we can help one another. Do not live life alone. I love the reading of Ecclesiastes 4, verses 9 through 12. Again, 2 are better than 1. I'll say 3 are better than 2. Don't just go to church with these people. Share and face life with these members. And we'll give you opportunities to have more of that, but don't wait on us. On this note, I'm thankful to say that one of the problems that comes with being alone, or I should say it's sad to think about this, but when we feel alone, when we think alone, we think that everything rests on our shoulders. I'm happy to tell you that all does not rest upon our shoulders. That would be a lot of pressure. Too much for one person. Romans 12, 3 through 8 explains that God put us together in a body. And that means that each of us do have responsibility, but no one person bears the entire burden. Wow. Paul elaborates on this in one of my favorite companion chapters, 1 Corinthians chapter 12. And I'll read some from the NIV, just a little bit of the wording. The body is a unit. I like the word unit, if we understand it. Though it is made up of many parts, and though its parts are many, they form one body. Okay, so physically speaking, we all relate to this life as a human because this is the vessel that we are experiencing on earth. And he's about to lay it alongside some spiritual truths. He says, so it is with Christ. Metaphorically speaking, if the foot should say, oh, because I'm not a hand, I don't belong to the body, it would not for that reason cease to be part of the body. If the ear should say, oh, I'm not the eye, I'm not a part of the body, it would not for that reason cease to be part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would be the sense of hearing? If the whole body were an ear, where would be the sense of smell? But God has in fact arranged the parts of the body just as he wanted them. If they were all one part, where would the body be? There are many parts and yet one body. Notice the tone in which I spoke those illustrations. He starts by addressing people who are thinking too lowly of themselves, if it is possible to think too humbly. Because they're thinking, oh, I'm not this person, I'm not that person, I don't have that skill or that place or that status. I can't be a part of that. Paul says that's devil thinking right there. No, you're not. You're a part of this body. But then he shifts. There are some people who think haughtily, and he pulls those people down a bit. He says, the eye cannot say to the hand, I don't need you. The hand cannot say to the feet, I don't need you. Oh no. Those parts are indispensable. We treat them, in fact, with special honor. And he says the unpresentable parts, we treat with special modesty. Or at least we should. Little side note, I heard a quote recently from a cassette of a lesson 10 years ago by Lonnie Jones. He said, sometimes our attire broadcasts our puberty, not our purity. Oh, that's good. I like that. We do and we should treat certain areas, physically speaking, with special modesty. But think about the spiritual comparison to the body of Christ. Everyone, we have different roles. We do have different honors for different roles. But equal in value and importance. It says God combined the members of the body, giving greater honor to the parts that lacked it, so that there should be no schism or division in the body, but that the parts should have equal concern for one another. If one part suffers, we relate to this. If one member of our physical body suffers, the whole body suffers with it. We've demonstrated that in many ways humorously before. But we relate to that. And he says that is how it should be in the body of Christ. Each one of you is a part of it. Did you know that some of your siblings in Christ have had a hard week? It's hard for a few to address the needs of the many. So have you helped with that? Those prayer emails help a lot to help us help them. No doubt we have responsibility. But the function and the weight of the whole body does not depend upon us alone. And frankly, there are things that we just can't do. I remember telling a person who came to college and spoke at a class one time about various forms of ministry. And I told him, I said, I just can't wait till I can do it all. That was the essence of what I said. He says, you won't be able to. Focus on what you can do. And then you'll appreciate the others who do their part, because you will see that you depend on them. Words of wisdom, so true. God put us in the body to do our part and to rely on others. And again, the example of Acts chapter 6. Here's a great example of what was done. It didn't start off well, but good advice given to make it right. There were some Hellenistic widows, Greek widows, that were not being treated properly in the equal distribution of food and finance. That the apostles had tremendous responsibility already. And it may seem like they were saying in the text, I'm not going to do that. What they're saying is this is a job for others to do, for everyone to do their part. And they selected 7 other men with credentials, qualifications, to get the job done. Beautiful. As you and I mature in Christ, rejoice in the work that you do. Others will pull you down, or at least maybe ignorantly be pawns of the devil to discourage you for not doing A, B, and C when you're doing D, E, and F. You just keep rejoicing in the work that you do as they grow as well. Ephesians 4:15 and 16. I love this. Speaking the truth in love may grow up. Here it is, grow up in all things into him who is the head, Christ. And then he tells a little bit about Christ. As we mature and have health and strength in him, from whom the whole body, joined and knit together by what every joint supplies. By what every joint supplies. According to the effective working by which every part does its share. and each part doing its share causes growth for the edifying of itself in love. The body is held together and built up by what every member does. What a blessing it is to know that the whole burden is not resting upon our shoulders, but what motivation it is to serve others, knowing that we share in the responsibility of the health of the entire body. Whew. Well, after realizing that we are connected, there are two truths that become evident. And the first of those two, we need others. I love those amens. Thank you. That sounds great in thought to us because we know the blessings already. But we still in this American culture may struggle to put that into practice. Sometimes it's difficult to take the culture and see where it overlaps with Christian doctrine and see where it contradicts. It seems like many people are conditioned to depend upon the wrong things, while others still are conditioned to depend upon or be interdependent upon the wrong things as well. American culture, at least the one I grew up in, was valuing your independence in that you can stand alone, you don't need anyone. And that's hard to overcome, and it makes it a hard sell when you're pitching to someone how we need one another in a body like this, especially when you've not yet experienced it. A lot of people love the idea of relying on only themselves, and it's very difficult to overcome that and realize you need others just as much, if not more. But, spiritually speaking, our relationship with God is blessed by the entire body. Our relationship with God is blessed by the entire body. It says here, God has put us together because we need others. And Paul deals with this as well in Romans chapter 12, verse 3, and then some of the echoed verses that we've already heard. He says, we must not think too much of ourselves. I appreciate the amen to the earlier point. It was pleasing because it may have sounded too direct and not related to the text. But after saying all that we've already done, let me reword a little bit in a scenario for you. It would be like someone coming up and saying, I'm doing good on my own. I don't need you. And if you need help, let someone else help you. But not me. No. That's not right. If we think that way, we will soon find ourselves in need and realize we were wrong. Paul's point here is that we need to humble ourselves and realize that we need others. And again, Ecclesiastes 4, the value of a friend, just some highlights from it. 2 are better than 1. If they fall, one will lift up his companion. Let's skip to verse 12. Though one may be overpowered by another, 2 can withstand him, and a threefold cord is not quickly broken. Wow, that's beautiful. Hebrews 10:24 teaches that we need one another for what purpose? To prod and to provoke one another to love and to good deeds. This is why we're here. Faithful living. I hope I'm encouraging you to keep on. Thank you for coming, knowing that I would. James chapter 5, verse 16, confess your trespasses to one another and pray for one another that you may be healed, because the effective, fervent prayer of the righteous is powerful and effective. It avails much. This command is difficult. So everyone decided to spend about 13 weeks on fellowship on Wednesday nights to help us with this command. We need others to confess to. We need that blessing tremendously. We are missing out if we do not. And we need to be that blessing for other people. 1 Corinthians 12:21 explains that we simply cannot say to others that we do not need them. We cannot do it. And again, Ephesians 4:15 and 16 explains that growth requires what? Well, what every joint supplies. It requires what everyone can provide. You may be doing great right now, and that's great. Spiritually speaking, I hope you're on a mountain. But there are some valleys that are going to come. Can't avoid it. Ecclesiastes 4:9-7 teaches me, or at least gets the point across to me, that I need to use whatever energies I have or have left to build those relationships for those times of struggle for others to support me. This whole lesson, I believe, is positive as we face certain realities of life. But the other truth, once you realize you're connected, the other truth is others need me. Others need you. Whether you realize it or not, or whether others realize it or not, they do. And Romans 12:4-5 explains that each member of the body has their own separate function. That means others need what you do. 1 Corinthians 12:14-17, Paul says you are needed for the function that you perform. I love what Paul says in verse 18. God has put each member of the body right where he wants it in order to accomplish what he wants it to do. Think about that. You're here because God has a place and a purpose for you here. That's beautiful. And perhaps one of the greatest blessings of this gift of one another is having a place to belong, a group with which to be involved with, that cares and focuses and works on the right things, spiritual matters of God. In this gift of one another, you have meaning, you have purpose, you have a mission that we all said earlier for us to embrace. And if it's our greatest mission, don't you think that when we embrace it and live by it, that we'll also have the richest blessings? God's way works. So just as we need others' support, they need ours. And as a bonus summary, I'm still thinking about the previous series because it's just fresh on my mind, and I hope you appreciated it as much as I did. Body membership involves dependency. I can't function with you. I can't live without you. Body membership emphasizes equality. Roles are different. Value is priceless. Body membership demands unity. We talked about that last Wednesday night, what we're unified by. And I now hold up this. Some of you thought I forgot. This book right here. It is the standard in all religious matters. It is the perfect, inerrant will of God for our lives. And the new covenant showed how Christ fulfilled the old. We are now under Christ, nothing more, nothing less. We're unified by the truth, the identity and teachings of Jesus Christ. And the purpose that we have is to spread his kingdom. So let's assume initiative. Let's get involved with the opportunities to serve. If you're interested where your talents are and are maybe new to the congregation, I encourage you to visit our vimeo.com/Oak Hill website and go back to our Wednesday night series last year. It's spotlighted as a series so you can see all the videos on spiritual gifts and understand how we are providentially developed to serve the body in many ways. The church is not a burden. It is not simply a responsibility. The church is God's gift to one another. And all the blessings are in Christ. And so I ask you as we conclude our lesson, are you in Christ? Appreciate Matt's comments that emphasize how we respond in faith to the gospel that God has said will save us. The Old Testament couldn't redeem us. We couldn't find justification from that. But God through Christ has. This is beautiful. Romans 6:3-5. In baptism we were buried in water for the remission of sins and then raised to walk a new life. Galatians 3:27. Don't you know as many of us as were done that? What were we doing? We were putting on Christ. That faith response allows us to, yes, symbolize his death and burial and resurrection. But do you realize it's a lot more than just a symbol? It is a spiritual participation in the death, the burial, and the resurrection. The death is where the payment was paid. The blood was shed. Justification, redemption, forgiveness, right there, buried in the tomb, and was risen. Validating his identity, of course, and showing us he's the power of the first fruits of those who also come up out of their graves to live a righteous life and to have, yes, that promise, the ultimate promise fulfilled of our resurrection when he returns to be with him forever. God didn't even have to do that, but he still gave that gift to us. There are a lot of blessings in Christ. All blessings like that are in Christ. Are you in Christ? For him to then add you to that body that we've talked about this morning. If you need to respond, let's make that happen, please, as we stand and as we sing.